What is up, you guys? We have an emergency episode of the show today because the All Blacks are dropping like flies ahead of the Northern Hemisphere tour. They haven't even got on the plane yet to go and face Japan. Already 3 major top-line All Blacks are out of action. In this video, I'm going to break down who they are, what this means for their future. One of them, I think it's going to have a devastating long-term effect on their future, and also what the new additions to the squad mean for this tour. Let's get to it, guys. Okay, so the loose forwards are really snake bit on this tour already. Ethan Blackadder, who can obviously play all 3 positions in the loose forwards. Luke Jacobson, who's pretty much come on as an impact player but tends to prefer 7. And then Dalton Papali'i, also a 7. They are scratched. Now, Ethan Blackadder is probably the most interesting one. People feel very positive about his talent, about his work rate. What they don't feel so positive about, if I'm going to judge it based on your comments on this channel, is his accuracy. Is he an unguided missile? I've heard that a couple of times. I don't think so. I think he's a guy that brings a hell of a lot. He does incur some penalties, but I think it's because he's such an all-action player. He's so all over everything. He hits so many rucks. He affects so many tackles. You're going to get a little bit of bad statistically to go with all the good he does. With that said, his stats this year are a moot point because he's out. And he has done nothing whatsoever to change the perception of him as injury prone, as a liability in the squad. So we're not really talking about his talent anymore. We're talking about his durability. It is the same old issue. And I think that missing this tour actually could be quite detrimental to his long-term future. This was going to be his comeback year. To a certain extent, it worked. He was in great form through a couple of those tests, but then he missed South Africa. He missed Australia. The coaches kind of were giving us breadcrumbs. They said, hey, listen, he probably could have played that last game against Australia, but there's a bigger picture here. Let's not push it. He's almost right. Evidently, he's not. His calf isn't good enough to go on the end of year tour, and you've got to think it's on the bad side, because I feel like they would have taken him even if he was perhaps going to miss Japan, perhaps even going to miss England at a stretch. You still have 3 more games ahead. This tells me it's a pretty gnarly injury if they want him to rehab and come back for Super Rugby. And I think that even Robertson, who's going to want to persist with Blackadder because he clearly likes his game, but even he's going to have to take some pause after this. Now, Luke Jacobson, really been used as an impact player. That's a bit of a loss for me. I like his grittiness. I made a comment recently about the mongrel coming back to the All Black pack. This was a player that I recognized in that analysis in terms of guys coming off the bench and really shoring up the All Black defensive line, adding some starch, adding some impact. We're not quite at the point of having a Kiwi bomb squad to rival South Africa, but there were some promising signs. Guys like Basilio Tosi, guys like Jacobson, Asafo Amua. So that's a bit of a loss against some of those UK heavyweights who we're really going to need to be hitting with concrete shoulders if we're going to stop them. And then there's Dalton Papali'i, who has kind of been, I don't want to say persona non grata, but ever since you brought Wallace Satiti into the loose forward mix as a guaranteed starter, and ever since you've seen Robertson signaling, hey, I'm going to keep picking Sam Cane to start this year, doesn't matter if he's going next year, well, Dalton's really dropped in the pecking order. This isn't necessarily going to help him. In fact, it's opened the door for Peter Lakai. Phenomenal for the Hurricanes this year. A player that a lot of you felt should have been in this end-of-year tour. And that's what opens up an interesting conundrum for me. Why is Razor so conservative? He was brought in to shift the culture of the All Blacks. Let's get out of this succession policy that took us from Graham Henry to Shag to Ian Foster. Worked beautifully most of the time. Diminishing returns by the time we got to Foster, although they did pull up the nose and make that Rugby World Cup final, famously, of course. However, Razor was meant to be a breath of fresh air. So far, it's felt a little bit like Ian Foster 2.0, if you want to be nasty about it. You might say, well, it's okay to pick guys like TJ Perenara, Sam Cane, some of these guys where you're not investing in longevity and the future of the All Blacks. It's okay to do that if we're winning now, but we lost to Argentina, we lost to South Africa twice. That's just where we are. You could also say we might have lost worse if those boys weren't in the squad. Would we have dropped another game if you didn't have some of these more experienced campaigners in the squad? That's kind of a rhetorical question. You can't answer it. Regardless, the experienced heads are being picked. But I'm feeling a kind of yearning from the New Zealand public to give some of these new boys a chance, because probably the highlight of Razor's first year as All Black coach is when he has been forced to roll the dice, trying Wallace Satiti at 6 being the prime example, and actually taking down the house, actually winning big. So you wonder if Peter Lakai has to start a game And that's going to take a few injuries. But if he has to start a game, could a star be born? Right? Even if he just has to come off the bench, could he make a cameo that changes the loose forward mix? Well, now at least there's the chance, because he's not just hovering on the periphery as a player in the All Blacks 15. He is in the All Blacks squad. He's going to be there all the way through. 3 losses just to the loose forward unit is a heavy hit. So this actually means that Peter Lakai might get some real game time, not just against Japan or Italy, but you could see him come into the mix against those heavyweights, England, Ireland, France, back to back. Don't forget that. 3 in a row in, I believe, 2 weeks or less. Razor's going to have to use his full squad for that. I don't think he's going to put an identical 23 out each week. He's going to have to rest a couple of people somewhere in there. So it's an exciting opportunity. It just makes you wonder, should this guy have actually been picked from the beginning? Now, how does this affect the loose forward mix? Unfortunately, it's destabilized things a little bit, and I don't necessarily think that we are going to get Ardie Savea at 7 now. I thought that might be possible. Wallace Satiti at 8, his preferred position where he's played. Try Savea at 7 again, his original position. Go back to that. Play Blackadder at 6. Well, that's gone now. You can't do that. So, unfortunately, it might rob us of the thing that we wanted to see on this tour, which was Satiti at 8 and Savea at 7. I just think that now we've lost a bit of experience here. Probably Razor is going to lean a bit more on someone like a Sam Cane. The other interesting thing was that we brought a lock in, Josh Lord, even though these guys are not locks. And that got me thinking, was it perhaps a mistake to leave him out in the first place? Clearly, Razor is seeing a bit more upside in the youthful Gary at the moment, despite his rough edges. But perhaps, look, obviously Razor's not happy about these injuries. I'm sure he's very disappointed. But perhaps nice for him that he gets another bite at the cherry and can bring Lord in, because it did seem that they wanted to fast track him back into black. You got to remember, he was brought into the squad on a diet of very little rugby. He looked undercooked when he came into the rugby championship this year, and he was, but he's a guy that they believe has a long-term future, so probably for the best that he's in the mix. Now, don't forget, there are 7 players with the All Black 15 who will be hanging around the squad as they go to Japan. So there is still some depth there that's readily available. A few players such as Plummer at 10 that I'm not really going to get into because I don't think the depth at 10 is an issue now. Guys like George Bauer, he's there to cover the props. We have so many fit props, not really an issue. Just wanted to look at the kind of loose forwards and locks here because that is kind of the flavor of what we're talking about. And I thought it was interesting. You got Christian Leo-Willie from the Crusaders, Oliver Haig from the Highlanders. So these guys are the next cabs off the rank in terms of the loose forwards. And then Fabian Holland, a player who is very popular in New Zealand. He plays for the Highlanders. He's in the mix too. So a kind of interesting look to the future there, an interesting peek of what would happen if we do have another player go down. But essentially, Razor's hand has been forced. He's had to go to youth here. And there's a chance that this pressure might just make a diamond. The critique will be, why didn't Razor do this already? Well, he's trying to win this year. He's trying to get that All Black winning percentage back up. He's just trying to grit it out and get through this really horrific schedule that he has this year. And I can understand the choices he's making, even if it seems a little conservative to us. What do you guys think about these new additions? Do you think that Peter Lakai should be on the bench? Do you think he should start a game, a big game? Let me know your comments, sound off below, and I'll catch you guys for another one real soon. Take it easy. Bye for now.